Now, if you're like most people, you've never had anyone ask you anything like this before, and thinking about this might not be comfortable. But if you want to be sure that you are not personally contributing to strife and conflict and injustice in the world, this is the sort of uncomfortable self-re-examination you need to do. So think about it. After this break, in the last segment of tonight's show, we'll completely shift gears, and I'll give you one more thing to ponder until next week. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm your host, Larken Rose, and in this, the final segment of the very first installment of Outside the Cage, I have a question for any Republican or Democrat voter. These days, stretching back for a long time, in fact, it seems that the way most people vote is not so much because they're just thrilled about what one party is doing, but because they're scared to death of what the other party is trying to do. So, picture in your mind that other party, the one you vote against, and see if you can sum up what it is about that party that you find so distasteful, that makes you so determined to keep them out of power. Might it go something like this? The politicians in their party, they pretend to be serving the people, and they pretend to care about the country, but they're really all just liars and crooks out for their own power. You can see that, and you don't know why the people who vote for them can't. And their policies, the things they try to pass into law, they're all about trying to control your choices, trying to make you serve their priorities instead of your own, trying to foist their values on you, and you don't like that. They claim that what they advocate is for the common good, but you know that their agenda is destructive and dangerous to society. And they want to force you to fund their agenda, to pay for things you're morally opposed to. They think it's their business to meddle in your choices of how to run your own life and to make you financially support things that you're strongly against. You're scared of them having power because their misguided, if not malicious, agenda is ruining the country. Does that pretty much sum it up? Okay, now I want you to see if you can sum up why the people who vote for that other party are so determined to keep your party out of power. I'm not asking you if their complaint is valid. Obviously, you think it's not. I'm just asking you to see if you can put into words why, from their perspective, they're against your party being in power. Might it go something like this? They think that the politicians in your party, while pretending to be serving the people and pretending to care about the country, are really all a bunch of liars and crooks out for their own power. And they don't know why you can't see that. The policies of your party, the things your party is trying to pass into law, they think they're all about trying to control the choices of your political opponents, trying to make them serve your priorities instead of their own, trying to foist your values on them, and they don't like it. As they see it, you claim that what you advocate is for the common good, but they think that your agenda is destructive and dangerous to society. And they think you're trying to force them to fund your agenda, to pay for things that they're morally opposed to. As they see it, you think it's your business to meddle in their choices of how to run their own lives and to make them financially support things that they're strongly against. They're scared of your party having power because they think that the misguided, if not malicious agenda of your party is ruining the country. Does that about sum up their position of your party? Does that sound a little bit familiar? Now, don't bother going into a rant about why you're right and they're wrong, because that's not the point here. The point is, you are both scared of the politicians of the other party getting into power because you don't want them controlling your choices, making you serve their priorities instead of your own, using your tax dollars for things you think are destructive or immoral, forcing you to support their agenda. Now, if you both see it that way, is there any way to reconcile this? They don't want to be forced to serve your agenda. You don't want to be forced to serve their agenda. Are you just going to clunk heads for the rest of your lives? Now, here's an uncomfortable question. Whatever you think of their values and priorities, are they right when they claim that you're trying to force your will on them, trying to force them to bend to your values and priorities? Well, do you vote for people who you know are going to tax them to pay for things they don't want? Now, you can argue about why they should want those things, why they should have the same values and priorities as you, but you know they don't. And you know the people you vote for would use the law to force them to make choices you like, but they don't like. You know that if your guy wins, they will be taxed to fund things that you are for and they're against. Again, you can pontificate about why it is that what they're for is stupid and evil and what you're for is wise and good, but that's not the point. The question is, do you think it's okay for you to try to put people into power, put people into office who you know are going to use the force of government to impose your choices upon those other people, choices they don't like, and are going to make them fund things you want but that they don't? Do you think it's okay for you to advocate doing that to them? And I bet you don't think it's okay when they advocate doing the same thing in the other direction to you. Oh, but what you want is good and righteous and necessary and conducive to a peaceful and just society, and what they want is bad and unjust and stupid and destructive. Yeah, and they think the exact same thing in the other direction. Pick some government endeavor that you support and think is important, whether it's military or the police or taking care of the poor or more funding for public schools, whatever it is, whatever program you support, you know that there are people out there who, for whatever reason, even if it's just because they're misguided or ignorant, they don't like how that government operation is run and they don't like being forced to pay for it. Well, if you believe in live and let live, or do unto others as you would have done unto you, do you really think it's okay for you to advocate that they be forced to fund things they don't like? And don't say that that's just how things are and that's how the system works, because that's not the question. The question is whether what you are personally advocating by way of how you vote is in line with your own moral code. And yes, they're trying to do the same thing to you when they vote for the other guy. Why is it bad when they do it and good when you do it? Because you know better than them? Does that make it okay to use government to control their choices and make them fund whatever you think is important? Even if you're right about what matters and what's important, do you consider it moral, righteous, and civilized to use the force of law to coerce others into making whatever choices you think they should make, to force them to fund things you think they should fund? Is that in keeping with your own moral code? Now, I realize that when it comes to politics, almost everyone has an us against them mentality. It's like a football game. People cheer for one side or the other. If you win, I lose. If you lose, I win. That's the mentality. It's a combat. It's a conflict of interest. All most people see is a choice between red or blue. Either you're on my side or you're the enemy when it comes to politics. And this often gets in the way of people's ability to think rationally. For example, if I call into question what someone is supporting and advocating by way of the political party or agenda they're pushing for, they often respond to me by saying, "Oh, so you're one of those people who support that other party." No, I'm not. But if they think that the only possible choices are A or B, and I point out a problem in supporting A, maybe it's not a good thing, they jump to the conclusion that I must be advocating B, because they can't think of another alternative. I'm not advocating A. I'm not advocating B. I'm advocating something far more basic than that. I'm advocating that people take the time and put in the effort to honestly examine their own beliefs and their own actions to see if they measure up to their own sense of right and wrong. Not mine. Why would you care whether I think you're doing the right thing? But I hope it would matter to you whether you're behaving in a way that is consistent with your own morality, your own sense of right and wrong. Now, if it makes you feel better, I don't mind saying that the people who support that other party, the party you're against, they're not acting in accordance with their own moral codes and their own sense of right and wrong. The bad news is, neither are you. Now, before you get mad at me for saying that, let me again emphasize that I'm not saying that your basic values and priorities are bad. I'm not saying that you're trying to be bad or that you don't care what is right and wrong. Quite the opposite. The only reason I'm bothering to say any of this is because I'm assuming that you do care about right and wrong. You are trying to do the right thing. You do want to be a good person. What I'm suggesting is that when it comes to politics and government, you, and just about everyone else, have been taught things that are drastically distorting your perceptions of reality in a way that leads you to do things and support things and advocate things that you would otherwise recognize as immoral and destructive. And if that's the case, then pointing your finger at those other people doing the same thing and saying, well, they're even worse, that doesn't really fix anything. Yes, there are people worse than you in the world. Is that a good reason to not examine your own beliefs and behaviors? Is your goal to do the right thing or just to do something not quite as bad as what the guy next to you is doing? Your beliefs were not your choice. You didn't come up with them on your own. You were trained into them by teachers and parents and the society around you. Don't be afraid to question those beliefs that aren't really yours. They were stuck into your head by other people. And if you want to jump ahead and get extra credit, you can order my book, The Most Dangerous Superstition, which will get to the point this show is leading to. You can get that at Amazon.com or at LarkenRose.com, LarkenRose.com. Now, be back here next week, and you will find out why this show is called Outside the Cage. Until then, do the right thing.